me and Pete linked up a couple years ago, and I will say it's the most positive addition to my adult life. Now, I often call him Positive Pete because I could call this fucking guy and whatever could have happened. He's going to listen, and he's going to put a positive spin on things. And, you know, listen, he came from some dark spots. I came from some dark spots. He's held my hand along the way through a lot of this. And while my father was really sick, he had a really rough 6 years. Me and Pete link up 3 or 4 years ago. And every time I left the hospital, I'd call him on my way back to work. Every time I left the rehab center or there was an issue, Pete always answered that call. And for me, at that point, he wasn't the closest person to me, but I felt comfortable to talk to him. And I felt comfortable to open up because he wasn't the closest person to me. So there was no...
I didn't have that shield up.
Yeah, because I've always been the strong one for everybody else. Now, I hadn't established that role with Pete.
Right.
So he got to be the strong one for me. And I'm not saying that guys like my cousin that I'm really close with or whoever, I couldn't have opened up to, but I felt uncomfortable with it. Mm-hmm. Now, Pete got it out of me where I can discuss how I feel now a little bit better than I previously have. But he was that ear for me. And if you're looking for somebody to talk to, identifying that person is important. But you got to know that person doesn't have to be in your immediate circle and the closest person to you right now. Like
such a major key.
Yeah, you're right about that. And so who was the call? Sorry to cut you off, but who was the call? And did it help?
I know we talked about my buddy Anthony just before. Yeah. Anthony happened to call me.
Oh, good.
Like, I don't know. It's fucked up, our industry. So, like, when everything happened on Friday with Scoop, you know, I don't know if you saw the video or not, but he basically, his last words were make some noise, and he fell over on stage. And I didn't have a contact to anybody who was at that show. It was in Connecticut. This was at midnight. I'm just doom scrolling on Facebook. Like, we're sitting on the porch, whatever. And I see this, and I'm bugging out because I have nobody to get a hold of to find out what's going on. So, you know, wake up at like 6, 7, I'm like going through the internet, what's going on, unconfirmed reports that he's dead, and somebody just ran with an article. It was not confirmed by the family, nothing, that he died. So I'm obviously flipping out about that, but it was a totally unconfirmed report that every news outlet just ran with.
Pumped out without even knowing.
So I talked to his attorney, and he's like, yeah, I can't get a hold of anybody. I'm going to call the hospital, this, that, and the third. And then the family put out a statement like later that morning, and Anthony happened to call me like right after. He didn't know, because I had texted him the night before. He didn't know it was like confirmed, but he had to happen to call me around the same time. But essentially, they were forced to put out a statement because everybody was bugging about it. There was so much shit about it. And it was such a public event in front of a crowd, and just traumatic. But yeah, Anthony called me, and we talked for like 3 minutes. That's it. It was enough for me to sob my eyes out.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
And get it out of my system for that period of time. And he knew, like, he had contacts. We had hung out together with Scoop and stuff.
Yeah. It's nice that you were able to have that support in him, but it's nice for you to realize, and I hope you realize the strength that you showed by being emotional with him on that call and sobbing a little bit and knowing that was okay. You know, previously, in my previous life, when my dad died, I wouldn't have cried in front of anybody. I would have just, you know, sucked it up, shoved that shit deep down inside.
That's painful to do.
It is. But now I'm okay to get a little vulnerable and be a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
So, like, I cried a bunch. Now, maybe I didn't cry, like, at his funeral, and I was strong for my mom, but I had my moments where...
You handled that like an absolute boss, by the way.
And I tried. You know, my mom is, I don't want to say fragile. She is a very strong woman, but she just lost her partner for nearly 50 years.
50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow.
So here I am, the oldest son. It's my job to be strong for you.
Bless
now, I'll be weak on my time around my wife, some of my close friends.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to know that it was okay to be vulnerable. It speaks volumes that you were able to know and accept that you could be vulnerable with your friend Anthony on that call.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was
a high energy soul.
He's another
really
one like me,
guy.
which is why we get along. But it's always like, it's life of the party.
Yeah.
Everything's life of the party, and it's not just about you being or me or him being life of the party. It's about everything. Everybody just feeling their best, connecting.
Yeah.
Just having a fucking great time. So those moments are rare, like what we had, but it speaks to our friendship, obviously. But I think it's really important what you said earlier about like, it doesn't have to be, that was in my immediate circle, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Which is why people go to therapy.
True.
Yeah, and I have